Welcome to Mastering CS Candid Leader Insights, the podcast where we deep dive into the world of customer success with industry leaders. I'm your host, Irina Cismas, and today's guest is Sara Arecco, Head of Customer Success at Antavo. Sara, welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here.
I'd love to hear about your story. I know you started out in sales. What actually inspired you to make the switch to customer success? How did you end up on this part?
Absolutely. So I started my career in sales, as you said, but I dove into more account management role at some point. And I started to have the willingness to move away from more transactional kind of interactions and start building longer lasting relationship, which is the main reason why I moved from sales to customer success. So it was really about building the relationship, building stronger connections, and having a longer period of time with the people that I was meeting.
You mentioned the account management part, and I know that a lot of people make a confusion between account management and customer success. From your point of view, what's the main difference between account management and customer success?
For me, the difference is very clear. Account management is just about renewal and upselling. So it's very transactional kind of sales role, but plus sales. And CSM is more about growing an account, showing value, and enabling them to use your product in the best way possible. So it can also be transactional, 100%. For example, at Antavo, we do have that transactional element as well. We have combined the two roles. But if you do divide them, then one is just mainly transactional and the other one is about relationship and bringing value.
Do you think your sales experience has influenced the way you approach customer success?
100%. Definitely. When I first started, my first priority was to actually get on with numbers because that was what I was familiar with. So I went straight into renewals, into upsells and said, okay, we need to get this going, which is why we drove amazing net retention revenue in first year. We increased it by more than 20% because that was absolutely my first priority when I took over the role.
Tell me more about the current role at Antavo. What's a typical day look like for you as head of CS?
I would like to talk more about week rather than day because every day is completely different. But usually I have, in a normal week, I would have meetings with product team and engineering team just to coordinate on what's upcoming for customers and what potentially needs a little bit more of prioritization. We have kickoff meetings with all the other heads that means support, but also professional services. Of course, one-on-ones with all of my teams. And then I have the occasional calls with customers as well, if they need me or if I'm covering for someone that is maybe on leave. Unfortunately, escalations do happen. So if there is the need for that, I'm there for that as well. And team meetings, of course.
You mentioned the team alignment meetings. How important are those? And what is the relationship between product engineering? You also mentioned professional services. Deep dive into this connection between the departments and the way you communicate.
Absolutely. We usually have 30 minutes as a kickoff on Mondays. So we just had that today. We just align on what's up with customers. And it's usually where CSMs tell all the news about this will happen on these customers, this will happen on these other customers, or some challenges or some things to look out for. And then we exchange ideas and we make sure that we are all aligned on what needs to happen in order to make that specific customer successful or what we need to keep an eye out for, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's very important to have that touch point at the beginning of the week. It's fundamental because as we always hear on LinkedIn, on podcasts, and everywhere, customer success is not just about one team, it's about a whole company, right? So if you don't have that touch point, that communication flow, then you're really missing out on actually making your customer successful.
Speaking of your customers, who are they and what kind of challenges do they usually face?
Yeah, so our customers are typically retailers. So we work with a B2B2C kind of model, but we also expand to other verticals. We have customers like Fatmander or KFC. We really vary in the kind of customers that we have, but typically retailers are our biggest segment. In terms of goals that they want to achieve with our platform, they usually want to increase how much their customers spend, how often they spend, and also the engagement that they have with their customers. We're talking about consumers like you and I entering any KFC store and buying our lunch or dinner.
How do you and your team help them overcome those type of challenges from your CS role? How do you support them on a daily basis?
So we usually have monthly calls with all our customers. Obviously, we're a very high touch kind of team. And then we also have executive business reviews every 6 months. We don't do quarterly because in our segment of industry, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't bring a lot of value. So we do 6 months and we bring inspirations from other customers. We give them best practices on how to use the product. And I think it slightly varies from your standard CS role because usually you have one problem, one solution. You have one problem, 10,000 types of solutions. It's a very consultative kind of role from our point of view because it's about consumer behavior. So you have so many different ways to reach the same thing.
You mentioned at the beginning that you were a data-driven person, and this was the thing that you inherited from your sales role. And speaking of numbers, what are your main KPIs, and how do you keep track of them?
Yes. So obviously we have NRR. So that's usual, the net retention revenue. We need to keep track of that. But the others are about customer advocacy. So how many case studies, for example, we publish in a given year, or how many announcements on LinkedIn, for example, for a new customer go live, new customer announcements. And then the third one is about engagement and therefore customer happiness. We have voice of the customer and we attribute a number to every single entry that we have in voice of the customer from the CSMs. And that way we're able to make an estimate on what is the net positive sentiment for each customer and for a given time period. So that's how we measure customer happiness as well.
You mentioned about your, I would say, peers, the internal stakeholders with whom you are talking. Tell me a bit about your team, about the customer success team. How do you structure it? What skills are, I would say, critical and a must-have for a CS role?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we are one of the most international teams really in the whole organization, which makes me very happy because we come all from literally, there is not two people that are from the same country, which is absolutely great. I do love that diversity element that we all bring because we have very different approaches on work. But in terms of actual team distribution, we have only 2 roles inside of the team. We have CSMs and we have a CXM. That means customer success managers and customer experience managers. So customer success is a typical role of one-on-one touch points with customers, but the CXM is more about analytics and insights about customers. That means producing analytical reports based on data that we collect from research customer, publishing a newsletter, producing surveys for customers, interviews to understand what's their feedback, how can we improve. So I think these 2 combined really bring out the best right now. Obviously, we do have paths for growth and we do want to have someone more specific on onboarding, someone more specific on training, et cetera. But right now, this structure works for us. This is where we're at.
Very interesting. You mentioned that you are an international team and this is something that you totally enjoy. But I have to ask, how do you accommodate the cultural differences between everyone? Is it hard?
It's actually not. I think we did have some hiccups every now and then, but it's normal. And we're also, most of us are experts, so we're used to that cultural difference. And to say, oh, you do that? Oh, I find that weird, but I understand why it's not for you, and that's fine. It's about really being authentic, I think, and being very honest with each other. We're very close-knit kind of team, which I really, really love. I think it's important to, and it's pivotal to success, really. Compared to sales, where it's more the competitive kind of environment, in customer success, you really need to be more cooperative and you need a level of collaboration. Like, hey, I tried this thing and it actually really worked. So even coming from different cultures, different countries, it really helps doing that.
How do you keep the team motivated when I assume you are working in a remote environment? How do you keep everyone aligned and make sure that they don't feel left aside, or they are losing the big picture? How do you do it?
We have 2 team meetings every week. And then every month we also have team cheers, which is just 30-45 minutes where we just talk of literally anything but work. So we can talk about weekend plans, we can talk about holiday plans. I need to remodel my house, anything that you can come up with, just not work. So that helps. Plus, I have encouraged the team to take also, I think, 30 minutes at the beginning and 30 minutes at the end of the week to just talk without me there. That way you also do a little bit of team building by yourselves, and that's completely fine. You don't want your manager all the time with you, and I understand that there are some topics you don't want to talk to me about, and that's completely fine. So take some time, just bond with each other, have a coffee, and that's it.
You mentioned about how you keep the team motivated in a remote environment. And now I want to ask you, how do you keep them aligned when it comes to the focus on the right KPIs and making sure that they are driving meaningful impact? Because I know that there are so many demands on the customer success, and you can easily keep yourself busy the whole day, and you have a long agenda of the things that you did, but you weren't actually impacting the KPIs.
Exactly, because as a CSM, you have like your emails, and you have Slack, and then you have the calendar, and then you have the meetings, and then you have that person following up with you, marketing reaching out, sales needs something, and then suddenly something else is exploding, and you're like, what am I doing? So 100%. What we do, one of the team meetings that we have at the beginning of the week is to establish priorities. So each CSM writes down 3 priorities that they need to prioritize for the whole week. And that does help them in making sure that those are the 3 things. Then everything else follows. Of course, if something really urgent comes up on a Wednesday, of course, let's prioritize that. But technically, those are the main guidelines. We also have quarterly meetings with every CSM to do account planning and make sure that we know exactly what the goals for that quarter are. And we also have a customer success calendar. So at the beginning of the year, we wrote down all of our customers every single month of the year, and we wrote down what we were doing with each customer every month of the year. So we were saying with this customer, we're going to go in for a case study. With this customer, we need to start prepping renewal this month, and the renewal happens this other month, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, so that we plan out. Of course, not every month is full of things that you need to do, and that's completely fine. But at least it's a roadmap on how to navigate the year and CS.
Sticking with you, it feels like the CS is an easy job. Just by listening to you, I have to ask, I assume that you also have your difficult moments. What are your biggest challenges that you currently face? It can't be all milk and honey.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. No, but I think the biggest challenge right now is that I'm reviewing our customer journey. As we were saying before, communication can be easily broken between all the different teams because you really need to interact among so many different teams, and it's easy to get something lost in translation. And I understood that this is the process, but I wrote it in this document, and the other team has this other document, and it was not up to date. And it gets so messy. So what I'm working on right now is actually rebuilding the customer journey. I'm going in with basically a wrecking ball, destroying everything that we have so far and asking myself constantly, why are we doing this right? Does it actually make sense? Going 5 levels deeper, why? And I'm working on that with both C-levels, but also the other heads of the departments, because I do need their buy-in. Ultimately, I cannot take all decisions by myself. I wish it was that easy, but of course it doesn't work that way. So yeah, that's a challenge. That's how we're solving it. And it's really exciting. It's a big project, but it's exciting.
How often do you revisit your processes? Because this is sort of like a process for the customer journey, but I'm curious, what about the others? How often do you revisit them? And what's the tipping point?
I will be honest, as soon as they're needed.
How do you know that it's needed?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. So if one customer brings up something, I'll put that in my bucket list of things that probably need to have a look at. But when it's more customers and it's probably all in the same period, that obviously does get prioritized. So I start having a deeper look at that specific process as well. And also from the team. So if we introduce something and we're still scaling up, so there's 10,000 things changing at all times. Mm-hmm. If they get really frustrated with something, of course, I'm hearing them out and we go in together and try to say, okay, maybe we need to revisit this because these are really painful for you guys. So I think that's what happens really. Every quarter, we produce voice of the customer report for the whole company to see. And based on that, that basically summarizes everything that the customers have said in CSM calls for that quarter, and we put it in comparison with the other quarters, previous year, et cetera, et cetera. So that also gives us insight into, okay, so we did better in this area and this other area, but we could improve in this, and that. So let's focus on these things.
I'm curious, those ways of the customer reports, how do you leverage them internally? Who uses those insights?
Us mostly.
Is it only CS or also product engineering and sales or the others? Who?
Everybody reads them and everybody has access to them. The yearly one is presented to every single team individually. So me and the customer experience manager, we go in every single team, HR, finance, every single one of them. We present our findings and results. But typically, we do receive a lot of questions because everybody is starting to see the value that this brings and the results. As you said, right? I really do believe in data. So if you do say, look, we could do these track of actions or take these other track of action, and these are going to be the potential results, pros and benefits, well, then the data is speaking by itself.
I want to ask you, you mentioned taking the buy-in of the executive team. How do you approach this part? How do you set internally the value of the CS department?
Well, I report directly to C-level, which I think does help, to be fair. But at the same time, all of these reports have actually really, really helped. Because suddenly, when we published it for the first time, everybody had something to say about it. And they maybe were happy, maybe they were less happy. And they were like, oh, but my opinion is not actually represented in here. And I said, oh, okay, if your opinion is not represented, give me the information so I can represent your opinion. And that's how we got everybody to actually care about all of these reports. And everybody wants to be part of that now, which is absolutely great. I'm very happy with that. So we had to ruffle a few feathers, but ultimately we got the result. Fine.
That's super, super cool. A lot of the CSMs and head of CS I'm talking with do find it very difficult to change the perception between being a cost center and revenue center. As you said, it helps when you are reporting to the CEO or to a C-level. Besides this, you also need the mindset and understanding and the openness to really listen to what the team does and how can it contribute to the overall company growth. Because on paper, everyone understands it, but when it comes to objectives or projects that they are involved, we go back to the roots of doing more support rather than success.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, it's very hard to get that buy-in. And I think what really helped me was really, again, show the numbers. Because when you close an upsell, that is basically like you close a new sale and it's basically like a new customer. Well, then again, numbers are speaking. It's really not about being a cost center. CS is a revenue center. There is no doubting it, which is why I do think CS should actually earn renewals and upsells and all of that. It's a really important part and it kind of breaks the cycle if you do not do that. Also the relationship with the customer, because at some point they find this random person that they just talk money with. Who are they?
I want to speak also about technology because I know that at least in some cases or in some companies, it enables the success team. How do you leverage it? And how does it help you achieve your objectives?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be honest. We do use a lot of Excel sheets and we do use HubSpot. And right now they're launching their new customer success platform as well, which we're beta testing. So it's not up there yet to what we need, to be fair. But at the same time, it does help.
How about AI? Do you use it or how does it help you? If it helps you in any way.
To be honest, we're using just mostly ChatGPT for messages and all of that. And just making sure that we can craft the best communications possible. But except for that, we're not using much of AI. We are using AI just for recording meetings and summarizing meetings and input that notes into HubSpot. That does help, obviously, in time efficiencies. We're using TLDV for that. But except for that, honestly, we're not using much of AI. I do see the value in AI, and I would want to use more of AI, but I haven't found a tool that actually does what is needed from our side yet.
Before we wrap up, I'd love to know who has been your most influential mentor in your career and what's the best piece of advice that they gave you that still resonates with you today?
Yeah, Absolutely. So I think my all-time mentor is Irina Cismas. He was our old chief customer officer. We worked together for more than 5 years, and he's taught me so much. I think one of the best things that he ever told me was everyone is just playing their part based on the role that they were given. And what he meant by that was just that, the CFO is always going to think about money, and you can't blame them for just thinking about money and asking you questions about money. Sales is always going to think about prospects and making more money, bringing in new business. Marketing is going to do their thing. So what he meant was really, don't take things personally and just play to everyone's best interests. That's what they care about, because they have a role and they need to play the part for that role.
Thank you so much, Sara, for sharing your insights with us today. And a big thank you to everyone who listened this episode. Until next time, stay safe and keep mastering customer success.